Hungarian Folk Tales. The Diligent Girl and the Lazy Girl. Once upon a time, there lived an old man and an old woman, and each had a daughter from their previous marriage. The old woman was always angry with her husband's daughter and did not like her the slightest bit. Things went from bad to worse until one day the old woman chased the girl away from home, saying that she should seek work with a rich family. The girl walked and was walking past a pear tree when the tree spoke to her. "Where are you going?" "I'm going to find a job as a servant with a rich family," the young girl replied. "Come here and rid me of my dry branches, and I will do you a good deed in return." Then the young girl walked on her way until she passed a grapevine, and the vine spoke to her. "Come here and hoe around my roots, and I will do you a good deal in return." Then the young girl walked on her way until she passed a crumbling oven. "Please come here and make me tidy and clean, and I will do you a good deed in return." Then the young girl walked on her way until she came across a broken-down well. "Where are you going?" "I journey to find work. Please come here and make me tidy and clean, and I will do you a good deed in return." So the young girl did as she was bid and bailed the stale water out of the well and walked on her way until she met a tiny dog. And the dog said, "Please wash me, brush me and trim me, and I will do you a good deal in return." The young girl cleaned and trimmed the dog, and the dog thanked her, and she walked on her way until she saw a beautiful house. There were fairies living in the house. The fairies asked the purpose of her journey, and so the young girl told them. Then the fairies said, "Why don't you stay here and become our servant? There are 7 rooms. You have to sweep out 6 rooms every day, but you must never go to the 7th room." So the young girl worked for a year and a day, and at the end of the year, the young girl said, "I would like to leave now and go home to show my parents what I've earned." "You have been a faithful maid," the fairies said. "You did as you were told, so now we will tell you what you have earned. Come here and lie down atop these gold coins. Roll over, and whatever sticks to you is yours. And now go and roll over on the silver coins, and whatever sticks to you is yours." The girl did as she was told, then stood up and bid farewell to the fairies. On her way home, she came across the little dog again that said, "Come here and take as many pearls as you wish." The dog was covered in pearls, and the young girl took the pearls and hung them around her neck. She walked on her way until she reached the well again, where jugs hung so that people could drink from its sweet water. The young girl was thirsty, and so she took a drink and walked on her way. When she reached the oven again, she noticed it was filled with bread and cake, and the oven said, "Come here and eat your fill in return for your good deed." She ate as much as she could, packed more to take home, and then walked on her way. Next she reached the grapevine that hung heavy with ripe fruit. So here the girl stopped and ate and drank as much as she could. Then the girl walked on her way again until she came to the pear tree, and the pear tree said, "I've been waiting for you, as all my pears are ripe." As the girl neared home, the cockerel crowed to announce her arrival. "Cock-a-doodle-doo! My mistress is coming home covered in silver and gold." The young girl heard the cockerel's call and ran home to bring joy at last to her old father. "Cock-a-doodle-doo! My mistress is coming home covered in silver and gold." The old woman shouted, "Be quiet! That's not true." Once again the cockerel said, "Cock-a-doodle-doo! My mistress is coming home covered in silver and gold." The old woman said, "You've earned very nicely indeed, but now my own daughter will go forth and work for a rich family, and she will earn a great deal more than you've managed." When the old woman's daughter reached the pear tree, it said, "Come here and rid me of my dry branches, and I will do you a good deal in return." The girl said, "I will not ruin my pretty white hands and my lovely tiny feet, no matter what happens." When the girl reached the grapevine, it asked her to hoe its roots and to expect a good deal in return. But once again, the girl refused to do anything that might ruin her pretty white hands and her lovely tiny feet, no matter what happened. Next, she reached the oven. The oven asked her to repair it and it would do her a good deed in return. But the girl said she would not ruin her pretty white hands and her lovely tiny feet with disgusting mud and clay no matter what happened. Next she came to the broken down well. "Please come here and make me tidy and clean." But again she refused to dirty her pretty white hands and her lovely tiny feet, no matter what happened. Then she met the little dog that said, "Come here and trim me." But she refused to touch the dog because she would not dirty her pretty white hands and her lovely tiny feet, no matter what happened. Next, she reached the beautiful big house and asked that she be allowed to sleep there for the night. The fairies living there asked her where she was going, and so she told them. In reply, they asked her to stay and work as their maid. They said, "Here there are 6 rooms, and you must sweep them every day, but you must never enter the 7th room." The girl did as she was told and swept the 6 rooms every day and ignored the 7th. But after a while, her curiosity forced her to open the door to the 7th room. To her horror, she saw that it was filled with frogs and snakes, and they bit her and stung her so terribly that by the time she managed to escape, she was covered in blood. And so she left the fairy's house with no payment at all. On her way home, she met the dog and went up to ask for some pearls. The dog said, "You refused to help me, and now I refuse to help you." The girl reached the well and was very thirsty, but was not allowed to drink. When she reached the oven, it was packed with fresh bread and cakes, but she could not eat any of them, because when she reached inside for some, it burned her hands terribly. When she reached the grapevine, she tried to pick a bunch of grapes and to drink a glass of wine, but the grapevine pushed her hand away. And when she reached the pear tree, she could not pick a single pear. As she neared home, the cockerel caught sight of her and flew to the top of the fence and let it be known to everyone that, "Cock-a-doodle-doo, my mistress is coming all covered in blood." The old woman went to the fence and said, "That's not true, she's covered in gold." But the cockerel repeated, "Cock-a-doodle-doo, my mistress is coming all covered in blood." The old woman said, "That's not true, because she's covered in gold." The cockerel repeated, "Cock-a-doodle-doo, here comes my mistress all covered in blood." "That's not true, that's not true," shouted the old lady. But the old man said, "Now you can see that my daughter earned more as a maid than yours ever did." This led to such a quarrel that the old woman and her daughter left the old man's home. Then the old man and his daughter lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Hare and the Hedgehog. One sunny summer day, a hare and a hedgehog met in the meadow. The hare began to tease the hedgehog and said, "Hey, hedgehog, how can you even walk alone, let run with those stumpy little legs of yours?" This upset the hedgehog. "Well, I'm sure I can run faster with my little legs than you can run with your lanky long ones." Now the hare was upset. "I don't believe that." "Well, if you don't believe it, hare, let's make a wager." So the two of them placed their wagers, and then the hare said to the hedgehog, "Well then, hedgehog, shall we race?" To this the hedgehog said, "Tomorrow morning, when the 8 o'clock train leaves the station." The hare said, "But why not now, hedgehog? Because I have to go home to eat my supper. Let's meet again here tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock sharp." So the hedgehog went home. After they had eaten, the hedgehog told his wife what had happened. "Just imagine, I made a wager with the hare that I can run faster than him." The hedgehog's wife said, "Don't be foolish. How could you possibly run faster than the hare?" "Well, we'll find that out tomorrow morning." The following morning, the hedgehogs got up, ate a hearty breakfast, and went out to the meadow. They didn't go to the place where they should meet the hare, but instead stood at the other end of the meadow. Then the hedgehog told his wife to hide herself in a furrow. He told her, "When the hare arrives, you are to shout out, 'I'm already here, hare!'" Then the hedgehog walked to the far end of the meadow where he met the hare. "Hello there, hare." "Hello there, hedgehog. Are you ready to race?" "Yes, I am." "Then shall we run?" "Yes, let's run." "But how shall we run over such a bumpy field?" The hedgehog said, "It's simple. I shall run in one furrow and you in another, and so we won't bump into each other while we're racing." "That sounds like a very good idea." Then the hare stood ready in one furrow and the hedgehog in another, and the hedgehog told the hare, "I shall count, and when I get to 3, we start to run." And then the hedgehog counted, 1, 2, 3. Then they both began to run, but the hedgehog only ran 2 steps and hid himself deep in the furrow. But the hedgehog's wife was sitting waiting at the other end of the meadow when the hare arrived, and she shouted, "I'm already here, hare!" And the hare said, "That was no good. Let's race again." Then they turned back and began to run in the opposite direction, but this time the hedgehog's wife only ran 2 steps and hid herself deep in the furrow. The hare did his best to run faster than he had ever run before. But when the hare arrived back at the beginning of the meadow, the hedgehog said, "I'm already here, hare." that was no good. Let's race once more." So they turned around and ran back again, but the hedgehog quickly hid in the furrow again. The poor hare ran as fast as his legs would carry him, and when he got to the other end of the meadow, the hedgehog's wife said, "I'm already here, hare." "That was no good," said the hare. "Let's run one last time." But the foolish hare felt dizzy and his legs began to tremble, and he stood in the middle of the meadow, too tired to continue. The little hedgehogs laughed at the silly hare. They had won. The pair of them laughed all the way home, and they are probably still laughing to this very day. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Foolish Man. Many, many years ago, in a land far, far away, there lived a man and his wife. And I'm sorry to tell you that the man was not very clever. In fact, the man was a fool, and every day his wife had to tell him what to do and how to do it. The man and his wife had a cow, and one day his wife said, "Why don't you take the cow to market to sell it?" So the man dressed her foolish husband in his best clothes, and he left for the market with the cow. It was a very hot summer's day, and a cloud of flies began to bother the cow and make it run back and forth all over the place. And as they were walking, they met a man with a pig. "Kind sir, wouldn't you prefer to swap your troublesome cow for this pig?" "Oh, but of course I would," he said, and they made the exchange. So now the foolish man had a pig. But the pig was harder to control than the cow had been, and the foolish man did not like it at all. And as they were walking, they met a man carrying a goose. "Kind sir, wouldn't you prefer to swap your troublesome pig for this goose?" "Oh, but of course I would." Well, the goose was no better. It made a terrible mess, its feathers stuck to the foolish man's clothes, and he soon grew tired of carrying it. As they walked, they passed a man by the side of the road who was selling sharpening stones, and the man said, "Kind sir, wouldn't you prefer to swap your troublesome goose for this sharpening stone?" "Oh, but of course I would." So the foolish man was now left with nothing more than a sharpening stone, and he turned around and set off back home. And as he walked, he passed a pond with ducks swimming on it. The foolish man thought he would like to take a duck home for his wife. So he threw the sharpening stone, it sank into the pond, and all the ducks flew away. Now what am I going to do? No cow, no pig, no goose, no sharpening stone, no nothing. So he took off all his clothes and waded into the pond to find the sharpening stone. He searched the pond but could not find it anywhere. And when he came out of the water, he discovered that someone had stolen all of his clothes. So the foolish man was forced to walk home naked. The The foolish man was very hungry when he got home, and so he cut himself a slice of bread and went down into the cellar to have a drink of wine. So he put the bread on the step and looked around to see that the dog had made off with it. He then threw the wine tap at the dog, so all the wine spilled out of the barrel onto the floor. A goose sat in the corner hatching eggs, and the goose said, "Gaggle, gaggle, gaggle." "You're going to tell my wife?" "Gaggle, gaggle, gaggle, hiss, hiss." And the goose went on making a terrible din. So the foolish man grabbed the goose, wrung its neck, and threw it out into the yard. Then he poured a bag of flour into the wine and some feathers, rolled around in it, and sat on the eggs. His wife then came down into the cellar and said, "What on earth is going on here?" She looked around at the spilled wine, the flour and the feathers and saw something sitting on the eggs. "What kind of monster is this? You had better say something before I knock your head off. It's me, dear wife. Don't hurt me." "Where's the cow?" "I swapped it for a pig." "So where's the pig?" "I swapped it for a goose." "So where's the goose?" "I swapped it for a sharpening stone." "So where's the sharpening stone?" "I threw it into the pond. I wanted to hit a duck so I could bring it home to you." "And where are your clothes?" "Somebody stole them while I was looking for the sharpening stone." "Oh, you foolish man." And she pulled him off the eggs and gave him the beating of his life. The foolish man's wife never sent him anywhere again after that, and did everything herself because it was safer that way. And that is the end of my story.